Hello everyone, and thanks for taking your time out of what's obviously a very busy time of the year, but we're here for a very important reason. Mornington Peninsula Vineyards in Agricultural Victoria, I'd like to welcome you today to what is basically an information session on phylloxera and how we as the Mornington Peninsula want to arm ourselves with the ability to keep it out of our region. And there's a lot of things that we've been doing over the last 2 to 3 years, which has brought us to this point, where we're, as you would know, halfway through the process of becoming a phylloxera exclusion zone, which has very specific legislative requirements for movement of great material. That's a big reason about why we're here today, is to make sure everyone understands those requirements. Just a little bit of housekeeping for the day. Phones, if you haven't got them on silent yet, chuck them on, because you don't want to be the embarrassed one, do you? We will try to keep this within 12 o'clock. I think we should do that quite easily, depending on how long we want to chat for after the presentations. We really would like to get you away much quicker than that. There is tea and coffee and water down the end if you need it, and the toilets are on your way out, you might have seen. So I'll quickly give you a background from the MPVA's perspective on what we've been doing to try and stay very active in this space in protecting our biosecurity. And then I'll give you over to the Department of Ag, Tim and Dennis, who are going to give you some scenarios, understanding of compliances, and also some app news on a really terrific app that will be available from today that will give you an ability to make sure you understand very clearly what it means for fruit movement during harvest and at any other stage of the year. So going right back in a very general history, over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a lot of movement in the space of zoning of regions in relation to phylloxera. So phylloxera, as you know, is a pest that, from our point of view, can be devastating to vineyards over a long period of time in eating the root system out. And phylloxera has been found in what you can see are the red zones up there, or what we call the infested zones in the most in Victoria. There is an area in Sydney where it had been found with not a lot of vineyard, and that is called an infested zone. The green areas are the exclusion zones, or the zones that have had surveys done extensively over 2 to 3 years to look at whether there can be any phylloxera detected in the region. If there can't be any phylloxera detected in the region, then the department has the ability through legislation to protect those regions by not letting any great material through without permits into those regions. That's what we're talking about here today, is a change in our zoning that we're in the interim period of getting to, and the implications for that for us. What I might say before going a little further with the zones and what we've done over the last few years, remember, your biosecurity farm gate to farm gate still applies exactly the same within the region, okay? Your choices within this region on how you move around your machinery, your fruit, your labour, all those things are still your choices between farm gate to farm gate within the region. Us becoming a phylloxera exclusion zone is more about the traffic between borders, but those biosecurity risks are still there for you, just the same as they always had been, on how you traverse between your vineyards, how secure you are with your internal vineyard network and your external relationships in the vineyard. So take that away. The protocols that we've always had on the website at the MPVA are there for you to look at, to understand the risks for your own vineyard and how you move around the peninsula. So going back to the zones, probably the Ngambie region is one that I can't tell you exactly how long ago now, but it was some years ago, either side of the 2000s, and we had some discussion in the MPVA. Some of the people who are getting long in the tooth like me might remember a few meetings down at Hickenbotham's that the MPVA held in the early 2000s to discuss phylloxera and what it meant that they were finding more detections in the north of Victoria. So it's been on our plate since well back then. The big discovery for us, as far as geography goes, was the one in the Maroondah region, or of course the Yarra Valley as we know it. And that's the one that you can see that's closest to our region on the board. That was some 10, 12 years ago now. They've been acting as an infested zone. So there's heavy legislation on the movement of great material there and on that material coming down to us. Now, for us to be an exclusion zone, one of the big advantages is those legislations for other regions coming into our area become exactly that, legislated instead of freer movement. And that's an advantage for us. So we shouldn't be worried about restriction of trade. You can still get through the trade that you need to do. You just need to understand how you can do it with permits. Tim and Paul will explain that further in this meeting. You will have seen over the last, and excuse me while I just pull up another screen, you will have seen over the last couple of weeks that we've been doing the second year of our interim survey. When I talked before about becoming an exclusion zone and surveying the regions, we're right in the middle of that, as most of you would know. We've done 1 year of surveying, no phylloxera found across the vineyards that we've surveyed. Going back in with a more intensive survey generally across the peninsula, where some of you may have already been surveyed. That survey will carry on through January and is likely to wind up sometime in February at this stage. And I'm sure Tim and Paul will reiterate where we are with that. But that's as of a week ago, that's where we're up to in hectares, a total area surveyed of 214 of around 1,000 hectares that are on our survey list. What's important for you also in that survey list, if you have not filled out the agriculture survey in its entirety that was given to you last year, please go back online and fill that out entirely. There was obviously option to go to the end of it and say, yes, I accept that you do the survey on my vineyard, but there's a whole lot of other detail there that's important for Agriculture Victoria and for the MPVA that you fill out if you haven't. So if you are an owner who hasn't completely filled that survey, it'd be great if you could go back and do it. It's not particularly onerous, just takes a little bit of time out of our busy schedule. So that's where we are now. So the movement forward for us now is that whilst we are doing this survey, we have moved from being a risk zone for fruit moving into our region to an exclusion zone for fruit moving into our region. So, and great material and anything that might harbour great material. So that being the case, for movement into our region, you must know if you are doing any trade or activity with other regions, what you are permitted to do and what you are not permitted to do. You may be able to make a movement of grape or grape-related material with a permit. For instance, if you are buying fruit from a region that is a risk zone, if that vineyard is surveyed within this 12 months, you can trade with that vineyard and bring fruit into the region, but it must be surveyed before that fruit moves. That's an example, and I'm sure there'll be other examples that will show you. The other important thing that I'm sure will be iterated in this meeting is that we are an exclusion zone for movement into our region. Until this survey finishes in the third year, we are still considered a risk zone for other regions. Until we have a third year of the survey and we are completely as sure as we can be that phylloxera is not in our region after 3 years of the survey, we then become an exclusion zone for trade into our region. So that being the case, right now that we're still a risk zone for trade into our, trade out of our region, trade out of our region, trade into our region, we are an exclusion zone. Trade out of our region, we are still considered a risk zone. A simple example of that is if you were to sell your fruit to an exclusion zone, you cannot do it unless your vineyard has been surveyed in the last 12 months. The interesting thing about that is we are surveying our vineyards with Agriculture Victoria contractors right now. But you still need to get the permit and the piece of paper and the tick off from the department to do that sort of trade. So what I'm illustrating right here and now is know your restrictions across zones. There's an app that we will be showing you that will be available from today that is excellent in giving you that information in restriction across zones, across any type of grape material movement. It's very easy to use, and you'll see that it'll be very useful for you if you do need to trade in or out of the region. So that's probably enough from me as a general overview of where we're at here and now, and I'll pass you over to Tim Birch from Agriculture Victoria, and we're just going to swap computers over here now, so bear with us for 1 second. We'll get into some of the detail of what rezoning means for us.